Hello, and welcome to the Verne Gallery. For those of you who are not familiar with the gallery was established in 1953. It's 67 years old. It began as a private collection of old Japanese prints and paintings that were on loan to the Metropolitan Museum, the Cleveland Museum, and the Fogg at Harvard. I'd like to begin by thanking the Cleveland Museum of Art, the Print Club of Cleveland, all of my fellow dealers, all of the collectors in Cleveland for letting us participate in the Cleveland Museum of Art Fine Print Fair. I'd like to begin by talking about an artist named Daniel Kelly. Daniel Kelly was born in Idaho Falls, Idaho, grew up in Great Falls, Montana. And he goes to Japan over 40 years ago. And a few days before he leaves from San Francisco, he has $1.95 in his pocket. And he can't afford the really expensive books on Japanese art, so he buys a small book by a Japanese printmaker named Tokariki. In the back of the book, it said, if the reader of this book is in Kyoto, please visit the artist's studio. And it gave the address. And Daniel said, what the heck? He says, I'm going to go visit this Tokariki guy. He became his pupil and now works in the Metropolitan Museum, the Museum of Modern Art, the British Museum, the Smithsonian. The work behind me is called Fish Out of Water. And in a way, Daniel and many of these American artists that we represent are fish out of water in the world of Japan. And the Verne Gallery is a fish out of water in the world of fine art. And I thank you for letting this small Cleveland gallery be part of this exhibition. Some of the major prints you'll see on the website are by an artist named Hasui. Hasui's most famous print is a print called Zozoji Shiba. And it was done in 1925. And when people think of Japanese art in the 1920s and 30s, they think of this print. Another printmaker that we're featuring is Sarah Brayer, who was born in Rochester, New York. Her work's in the British Museum and the Smithsonian. She's one of the leading paper makers in Japan. She works in the 800-year-old paper-making village of Echizen. Katsunori Hamanishi is probably the most famous of all the contemporary Japanese printmakers. He's a mezzotint artist. He's had numerous one-man shows at the Smithsonian, at the Art Institute of Chicago. His triptych was recently featured at the Metropolitan. His work's in almost every major museum collection. The last artist I'm going to tell you about is Yuko Kimura, who won the Agnes Gund Award. She was born in Tokyo. She lives here in Cleveland. And she has 10 or 11 museum exhibitions scheduled for 2021 and 2022 of some of the top Japanese paper makers from Japan.
I, for many years, have had various friends tell me, oh, I went to the Armory today and I saw, what's that your dealer? What's that, your dealer? I saw, wow, he had people all around him, and he was showing us work. You wouldn't believe it. It was the only gallery. It was crowded. Yeah, and I heard that a lot.
I know when they crowd around, I'm like, why are you listening to me?
You know what that reminds me of? I must have been 4th or 5th grade.
Yeah. And
in the basement of a department store, in the kitchen gadgets, was a guy traveling around who demonstrated a Vegematic or something like that.
Yeah.
And I just watched him do his little show.
Yeah.
And I was just so impressed with his performance. He was selling the Vegematic. And that's kind of like you.
I am sort
really
of. I'm sort of
Mr. Vegematic.
Mr. Vegematic. Yeah.